The Nautilus becomes your vessel, and Captain Nemo your host, as you embark on a perilous voyage 20,000 leagues under the sea.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea Submarine Voyage opened on October 14, 1971, only weeks after the opening of Walt Disney World. The transition from Submarine Voyage into the world of Jules Verne was pioneered by a young group of Imagineers, sent to work on the Florida project as one of their first assignments. One of those was famous Imagineer Tony Baxter, who worked on projects such as Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and Space Mountain. These Imagineers were passionate about the project, appreciating the creative work done by the original Submarine Voyage Imagineers, such as Bob Gurr. In doing this, the two attractions were nearly identical in layout, but had some notable design and technical differences. For one, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea had 4 more subs than Submarine Voyage, with a total of 12 40-seater ride vehicles. The lagoon also required 11.5 million gallons of water, 2.5 more than its predecessor. The sub's design was changed to the industrial fantasy steampunk style to resemble the film's design. This included a bronze finish, extra cogs, and a red leather interior. The narration was from Captain Nemo rather than an unnamed captain, and everyone was supposed to be aboard the Nautilus. There were also buttons installed in the portholes to defog the windows, but these never worked properly and rarely helped. Throughout the ride, organ music from the film would play under Captain Nemo's narration, giving an eerie feeling as the submarine explored the depths of the ocean. The divers were still present, but were fitted with suits to match that of the movies, and the giant squid encounter at the end was featured more prominently to match the movie's famous scene. Besides that and a few other minor differences, the attraction was the same as Submarine Voyage, even in terms of reception, as both attractions were loved by fans. In 1986, Submarine Voyage would be refurbished. Its Cold War-era gray subs would be painted yellow and white to resemble research submarines rather than military ones. Research submarines are painted yellow because it allows the subs to still be visible in deep water. The bright paint began to chip almost immediately, and the subs had to be repainted a few months later, this time with toned-down colors and more water-friendly paints. Both attractions pleased guests on their voyages until 1994, when 20,000 Leagues would be closed for a temporary refurbishment while Disney tried to secure a corporate sponsor to offset operation costs. However, 2 years after its closure, Disney announced that it would permanently close, giving guests no warning. The submarines sat abandoned in the lagoon until 1996, when they were removed. Some of the portholes from the subs were sold at the Disney store for $125 apiece. One of the subs was moved to the Boneyard area of the Hollywood Studios backlot tour, which recently closed. Another 2 of them were taken to Disney's then new private island and cruise destination, Castaway Cay. Here, their fate is muddled. At least one was repainted and fashioned with cargo netting to encourage sea life to inhabit them before being placed in the snorkeling area of the island for guests to swim to. Some say the other sub did the same, while others claim it was placed in an area for guests to take pictures by or children to play on. After a while, the 2 subs disappeared. Some believe Disney removed them, while others think a hurricane pushed them out to sea. There's still one near the island in the snorkeling area if you snorkel out far enough. As for the rest, they were sold to a scrapyard, where they were dismantled and either sold for their parts or buried. The lagoon remained, with caverns built around the loading dock, and the area renamed and rethemed to Ariel's Grotto, a character meeting area. A statue of King Triton was added to the lagoon as well. This remained until 2004, when the lagoon was filled and paved. The animatronics, which had been sitting in the lagoon all this time, were viciously destroyed, with no care whatsoever. A year later in 2005, a playground, Pooh's Playful Spot, took a portion of the newly free area. 5 years after that, the playground closed to make way for new Fantasyland, a huge expansion to the Magic Kingdom. While the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea attraction at Walt Disney World is long gone, it still lives on at Disney parks. The first attempt to bring back 20,000 Leagues was in Tony Baxter's Discovery Bay. Discovery Bay was a never-built land at Disneyland that Baxter developed in the late 1970s after his first independent project, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Baxter wanted to build a land in between Frontierland and Fantasyland as a transition in between the 2 themes. His land was a steampunk dream, filled with attractions based off of Jules Verne stories, including 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. One was a simulator attraction, similar to and later developing into Star Tours, called Captain Nemo's Adventure. It would take guests through the perilous seas of 20,000 Leagues. There would also be another walkthrough attraction of the Nautilus, once again showcasing popular scenes from the film. Finally, there would be an underwater restaurant inside the Nautilus called the Grand Salon. Discovery Bay would never be built for a variety of reasons, including the worry that Jules Verne's fantasy adventures wouldn't interest guests enough. The land allocated for it remained empty until recently, when construction began on Star Wars Land. Discovery Land, however, was built. Discovery Land is a land at Disneyland Paris that takes the role of Tomorrowland at the park. In the late 80s and early 90s, during the planning and construction of Euro Disneyland, Disney called once again on Tony Baxter. Baxter and his Imagineering team had a luxury that the previous Disney parks did not have: a fresh start. They could plan out every section of the park, create intricate stories that crossed over the attractions, and theme their lands from scratch. This is what led them to build Discoveryland instead of Tomorrowland. As has been said many times, the main problem with Tomorrowland is that tomorrow will always come, but Baxter found a way around this. He would take parts of his concept from Discovery Bay and implement them in Paris, displaying a tomorrow as imagined by the creative minds of the past. And this meant more steampunk and less chrome. If you remember the Defunctland on Videopolis, this is the section of the park that Videopolis Theater is located in, which is why there's a Victorian-esque blimp. There would be a Space Mountain, but it would be called Space Mountain from the Earth to the Moon, based off of the Jules Verne novel. The land was also originally supposed to include a freefall ride based off of Journey to the Center of the Earth, an idea from Discovery Bay that wouldn't be implemented in Paris either. And the land was to have one more Jules Verne-based attraction, and this one did come to fruition. Another walkthrough of the Nautilus, drawing inspiration from the original Tomorrowland attraction, which had closed nearly 30 years before, complete with a giant squid encounter. Throughout the years, Disney has basically destroyed the theming of Discoveryland by renovating and adding new attractions to it, but the mysteries of the Nautilus walkthrough attraction still remains. And Jules Verne would continue to dominate Disney parks overseas, this time in Tokyo at Disney Sea. Disney Sea opened on September 4th, 2001 as part of the Tokyo Disney Resort. Disney Sea received praise similar to Disneyland Paris, with guests and critics amazed at its intricate story and theming. Luckily for Disney, it was immediately financially successful, and remains today as one of the most attended theme parks, with some even claiming that it is the best theme park ever built. The park's icon is Mount Prometheus, a large volcano that hosts one of the themed lands, Mysterious Island. Mysterious Island is themed after another Jules Verne novel of the same name. This book was a half-sequel to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, in which the main characters stumble onto the island, which is the lair of Captain Nemo and the home port of the Nautilus. The land features two attractions: Journey to the Center of the Earth, which is once again sadly not a freefall ride, but instead the second incarnation of the test track technology with some impressive animatronic encounters. And the second attraction at Mysterious Island is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The attraction opened with the park 7 years after the Magic Kingdom ride closed. It is essentially the same concept with a few key differences. 1. Each ride vehicle can seat up to 6 people, with a porthole to the front, left, and right, with 2 guests positioned to look out each. 2. The ride is suspended from the ceiling, similar to Peter Pan's flight. 3. There are flashlights positioned to allow guests to explore the deep. 4. It's shorter and does not include every encounter that Submarine Voyage and 20,000 Leagues did. 5. The sea life has a neon glow, increasing visibility. And 6, and probably the biggest difference, the guests are never underwater. Double-paned glass fills with water and bubbles to make it appear that the guests are submerging, but the show building is completely dry. Still, the ride is similar enough to the beloved attraction, and arguably does a better job at entrenching guests in the world of Jules Verne. A lot of work went into bringing 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea back to Disney parks. But what was going on with Submarine Voyage during this time? Back in California, on September 9th, 1998, Submarine Voyage closed down for refurbishment. That day, Tony Baxter told Disneyland's president at the time, Paul Pressler, that this was one of the worst days of his life. In an attempt to prevent Submarine Voyage from falling to 20,000 Leagues' fate, Baxter set off to reopen the attraction, desperately searching for a new theme to pitch. Reports began to circulate that Disney had found the new theme and Submarine Voyage would reopen in 2003, now redesigned utilizing Atlantis, the Lost Empire, the 2001 Disney animated feature. Many thought that this would be the perfect update to the attraction and would revive Jules Verne's steampunk imagery, but the film only performed average and was therefore a risk for a prolonged attraction at a Disney park. Then, in 2002, Disney's animated film Treasure Island came out. This was the next best bet for Baxter and the Imagineers until it flopped at the box office. The next pitch was a Little Mermaid themed attraction, but this didn't come to fruition either. 2003 came and there was no update to the attraction. Disneyland executives decided that the subs took up too much space and storage, and they planned to get rid of them. After hearing this, Marty Schuyler, the Imagineer creative chief at the time, hired a naval engineering firm to look at the submarines. They determined that they had another 50 years of use. This stalled the executives from destroying them, and then the Imagineers finally caught a break. In 2003, a popular Pixar film, Finding Nemo, was released. It was a huge hit and an easy sell to refurbish the attraction. Imagineering developed a new projection technology that would eliminate the majority of the ride's animatronics in favor of screens. In 2004, one of the submarines reappeared at the lagoon. Imagineers were testing out the projections and trying to sell the concept to the executives. The executives greenlighted the project, and in 2005, it was announced that it would finally return to Disneyland as Finding Nemo: Submarine Voyage. So why did the original Submarine Voyage and 20,000 Leagues close? Both rides faced many difficulties with operation. First, riders with disabilities had virtually no way to experience the ride. They would have to be carried down by their own family, which was dangerous and nearly impossible in the cramped space. A problem that Finding Nemo's Submarine Voyage solved by having an entirely separate ride experience for those that could not ride in the tight submarines. Also, it took up to 25% of the space in Fantasyland while only being able to carry about 1,500 guests every hour, which was low compared to the other attractions that could handle up to 3,000. The submarines didn't age well either. The air conditioning broke and they began to leak more often. It was expensive to operate and maintain, as each sub would need a crew member, and refurbishments required the draining of the entire lagoon. 20,000 Leagues was supposedly only refurbished 3 times in the 20 plus years it operated, even though the lagoon had to be drained a few times a year to be cleaned. Between the operation costs and the lost potential revenue from the space, Disney no longer had interest in keeping the attractions as they were. They might have been more receptive to keeping the classic rides open had it not been for... Wait, did you really think you wouldn't be involved in this? If you recall, Eisner and his team put all their creative effort into Euro Disneyland, and as I previously mentioned, it paid off in terms of quality. Financially, however, it was a disaster. This was the turning point for Eisner, and the failure of Euro Disneyland led to the closure and cancellation of many attractions, Submarine Voyage and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea being some of them. Luckily, the attraction lives on in many ways in Disney parks around the world, thanks to creative visionaries, from Jules Verne, to Bob Gurr, to Tony Baxter, and to Walt Disney himself.
How about that? Wasn't that everything I promised you?
So that is the history of Submarine Voyage and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea Submarine Voyage. I won't split any more videos up like this, as it seems like the majority of you would prefer one longer video. By the way, the results from the poll are in, and the third area of Defunctland will be named the Dark Zone. This was suggested by Reddit user Zontra3000, so thank you and everyone that suggested and voted. Also, check out 20kride.com that has some amazing photos of the ride, including an album of the destroyed animatronics. Also, there's a link to an article from Theme Park Tourist in the description that I used as a reference numerous times in these videos, plus another link to a website that has some great photos of early Disneyland and Submarine Voyage. The Purge is undergoing a major redesign, but for now, to discuss the remains and memories of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and how we can preserve them, please visit thepurge.com with the link below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe.